Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are here with Yolander Prinzel. She is going to be presenting for the final day of our virtual Great American Teach-In with Pasco eSchool. We are joined this morning with Yolander Prinzel. She is a writer who focuses on online content creation, freelance writing. Since 2009, Yolander has been a self-employed writer creating web and print materials, books, blog posts, and articles for financial advisors, startups, and writing blogs. Some of her content has been reprinted and mentioned on websites such as Yahoo Finance, New York Times Online, and Forbes.com. And with that, I introduce to you Miss Yolander Prinzel.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I was told it was business casual today, so I hope that I didn't miss the mark. I got out my best wig and everything. I hope that's good. I did good.
I think it's phenomenal.
I nailed it? Okay.
You nailed it very well, especially for a Friday. And for anybody who has questions, please be sure that you text your name and the question to 813-330-0176, 813-330-0176.
All right. Well, I guess I thought today we would talk about online content creation because it's one of the most exciting, growing fields in writing, and I think it's a pretty new opportunity. So it's a great opportunity for you guys that maybe other generations haven't had. So, but what is online content creation? If you go to the next slide, I've got a list of things. And I didn't have room to list everything it is. But basically, all the content that you're watching online or reading online, somebody wrote it. The videos that you watch that are scripted, the podcast episodes that you listen to, those had talking points written for them, the blog posts that you're reading, social media updates from companies, that includes their Instagram, their Twitter, their Facebook. Those were all written by someone. Online lessons for, schools or for continuing education classes, product descriptions. You go to Think Geek and you look at a nice coffee mug that you like. Somebody had to be paid to write that product description. There are tons of things to do within the online content creation arena. So if you want to start working within online content, you have to know how to get jobs. And there's no single right way to getting jobs to writing content online. Some work comes from networking, some work comes from traditional querying, where you send an email to an editor or write a letter. No, you wouldn't write a letter. Well, I might, because I have a quill, but you wouldn't. You'd query them through email with an idea that you have for an article that you think would fit their publication. You might also visit a job board that has a listing of of open positions or needs for articles and blog posts. You could also get referrals. You could get referrals from clients. You could get referrals from friends and family. You can get referrals from basically everywhere. Another option for getting jobs is kind of putting yourself out there on your website. So you create a portfolio website and you make sure that it ranks highly in Google when people do web searches for your kind of writing. And that's something called search engine optimization, SEO. You've probably heard of it. But it's, like for me, because I focused on financial writing, if you Google financial writer, I will be on the first, 1 to 2 pages of results just because of how I've structured my portfolio site. And then that brings me to the idea of specializing, which is, I think, one of the easiest ways to get gigs is to choose a topic that you want to write about, that you really know something about, and to specialize in it. So for me, because my career was in finance well before I became a writer, I decided to specialize in financial writing. It makes sense, right? But I think a lot of people hesitate. They think, well, I don't want to specialize. I want to write about everything. I want to write about, whatever I'm passionate about at that moment. I want to write about, all kinds of different things. I want to learn things. Just because you specialize doesn't mean that you're stuck writing about only one type of thing. And it also doesn't mean that you can't let your personality show through your writing. If you go to the next slide, you can see that I've managed to specialize in financial writing, but still work in my love of zombies into some of the work that I've done. On the next slide, you can see that I've written about what Jersey Shore taught me about etiquette. I've written about what I learned while watching MTV's True Life. I Have Broke Parents. And I've also, written about how insurance is boring, because it is. But so how to make it interesting, how to make it exciting, because it's necessary. So just because you choose to specialize, it narrows down your pool of clients. It helps you better choose how to market yourself, but it doesn't mean that you're stuck and you're only going to be writing the same article over and over. All right, let's see. On the next slide, oh gosh, this is a great one. So if you're out there looking for gigs, let's say you go to Craigslist, which is a place you might be able to find some gigs. It's not a great place, but you can find things there. Or let's say you get an email from someone who found your website and they want to work with you. There are certain buzzwords that you want to be careful of. And it's not necessarily true that everyone who uses each of these buzzwords is definitely trying to, get away with paying you less or is trying to scam you. It's just, these are words to watch out for, just to kind of think about. And so one of the words is exposure. When you look at job ads and they offer, no pay, but lots of exposure, that's usually a red flag. Exposure can be nice for a writer. No one knows who you are. No one knows what you're doing. You want exposure. But a lot of the websites that offer exposure, they don't actually know how to get those eyeballs on your work. For example, a new entertainment site that's just starting up and, maybe wants me to write some reality TV recaps for exposure. Well, I know they don't have any traffic. So who am I being exposed to? Nobody. But let's say eOnline says, hey, we want you to do some recaps. All right, that's some exposure. eOnline is a really popular site. Lots of people go there. But the second part of that equation is, why do I want exposure on eOnline? Are the people who are reading eOnline going to end up hiring me to write for them? Probably not. So that exposure isn't going to serve me in any way. So when somebody's promising you exposure, you have to think about A, whether they can actually deliver the exposure, and B, whether you need it, whether it's actually going to help your career. Another phrase to watch out for is revenue share. This is another one where they don't want to pay you for the work. They want to pay you for the clicks that your work gets. So let's say it has an advertisement on the page and 10 people look at your article and 2 people click, and so the page earns 10 cents. And they'll give you 2 cents of it. Revenue share is generally not a good idea. You have to decide based on your business plan whether it fits, but generally speaking, it's not a good idea. 2 other things to avoid are internships and things that are great for students. Usually those are exploitive. They want to get free or really cheap work and tell you that it's going to help your career. And most of the time it's not. It's going to help them. And another word that I like to avoid is easy. When somebody tells me something's going to be easy, I interpret that as they're telling me they actually don't want to pay very much for it. It might be easy, but maybe it's time consuming and that's why they don't want to do it. And you deserve to be paid for your time as much as your effort. And then also, who's to say what's easy? Coming up with a funny meme, that's what, 5 words? Is it easy? Not really, because you have to think about the right word combination, the right picture. It's time consuming, and if you're good at it, if you have a skill, you deserve to be paid for it. So those are some of the buzzwords you kind of watch out for. And then we have business management. Okay, so if you want to be a writer, you probably think you have to really focus on your writing skill. And while that's not wrong, that's probably something you're doing automatically without even thinking. Business management is actually the bigger issue that you have to focus on. When it comes to business management, you're handling your own accounting, you're handling your own sales, you're doing your own marketing, you're doing your business planning. You sometimes have to hire others. Like I hire a proofreader, I hire designers sometimes. So you've got to, think about their schedules. You've got to set money aside so you can pay their invoices. You have to figure out what you're going to do if they don't come through for you. It's challenging. You also have to manage your time. You have to be very self-motivated, which I think most of you are probably learning, right now, taking online classes. But it's like a constant online class that you're tempted to not do homework for. So you really have to push yourself. You have to continue to develop professionally. You have to continue to educate yourself. Just using me as an example, I focus on financial writing. Well, finances change constantly. So I constantly have to learn about, new cryptocurrencies or new derivatives or, new IPOs. It's just constant. So you're constantly learning, and no one's going to make you do that. You just have to go ahead and do it. And if you don't, somebody else will. So, if you want to compete, you have to keep going. Other things you have to consider is insurance. You might need liability insurance. It's not a bad idea to have it. You could get, sued for something. You never know. Permits. You might have to have an occupational license, even just to work out of your home as a writer. And then you also have to think about setting your rates, which is really challenging and something that I still struggle with to this day after, 8 years or something. Deciding how much to charge, whether it's competitive, is it enough? Is it worth your time? Is it too low? You don't want to charge too little, because then not only are you not getting paid enough to make it worth it, but it doesn't look good to clients. So there's a lot of business management issues that you have to think about. We have some questions?
We do.
Oh, good.
Tatum would like to know, what is your favorite thing about the setting and abilities that your job gives you?
Well, Tatum, my favorite thing is that I get to stay home with my cats all day. That's my favorite thing about the setting. I had an office for a while, an off-site office, and I was really sad. I was really sad to go sit alone in my office every day. So I moved back to my home office, and now I have cats all around me, and that's my favorite thing about the setting. It just is. And what was the other part of the question?
Favorite thing about the setting and the abilities that your job gives you?
I sometimes have to be forced to learn something. I am a gamer. I like to play video games. That's really just what I would do 24/7, and maybe read some fiction books, but mostly I'd play video games. So I like that my job forces me to do things that normal adults are supposed to do, which is like learn stuff and know about things that are happening globally. And I also like the variety. That's one of the reasons why, content creation, online content creation is a draw for me, because there's so much variety. I might be working on ghostwriting a book one day, and then the next day I'm editing a book, another day I'm doing blog posts, maybe I'm working on some memes, which are so fun to create, even though they really are time consuming and hard. And then maybe I'm working on a YouTube script. It's just fun, and you can go with your mood. What am I in the mood to do today?
Awesome. We have more questions. Ian would like to know, what were some of the struggles that you faced? Oops, sorry, I'm reading the one that was above. What kinds of tools and programs do you use to manage your time?
In the beginning, when I was setting rates, that's a really good question, Anne. Thank you. When I was setting rates, I used to use a program that you would log your time because I wanted to see how long things actually took me. Like if I'm writing a blog post, does it actually take me an hour or is it taking me an hour and a half? So is my price in line with that or should I go higher? What should I do? So there was I can't remember what it is, but there's plenty of apps out there that you can notate what you're doing and track your time. These days, the most sophisticated project management tool I have is just a paper calendar. I just like writing stuff down. I'm super old fashioned.
Old fashioned is never a bad thing.
So I just like writing it down. I can see it. I can see my whole month on one page, and then on the other pages I see a daily breakdown. And like if I have a really big book, like I have a book deadline today, I parcel it out by pages. So I know that I have 1 month to get a few chapters in. I'll go 5 pages every day and then fit in a couple of blog posts. It's really just written down for me. That's the biggest tool, is a pencil and calendar.
Tyler would like to know, what is your favorite part of your job?
Well, Tyler,
hanging with your cats?
I know. I'm like, can't answer cats again. Say something else. I would say, this will sound weird, but writing. I know that probably sounds weird, but a lot of what you do isn't writing. It's meeting with people. It's selling yourself. It's updating your website. It's getting samples out there. It's a lot of other stuff. My favorite part is when I'm just kind of tucked in and I've got my blinders on and no one's going to bother me, and I'm just going to go deep and I'm just going to write. Because for me, writing is all about communication. I don't do verbal communication very well. I do better with written communication because I have to kind of circle around the drain to see what my brain is actually trying to say. And that's easier to do in writing. So writing is my favorite part.
Cool. How did you get into this field?
Well, that's weird. About 10 years ago, the last Harry Potter book came out, and I was really upset. I was a huge fan of Harry Potter, so I went to Barnes & Noble to one of the, the last day party things, and I had on a little costume, of course, and I was sitting there alone waiting for a friend to join me. And I was looking around at everybody, and I was thinking about how much Harry Potter meant to everyone and how different the experience was for everyone. And I just started writing an essay. I happened to have like a, notebook and a pencil, and I just started writing out an essay. And I wrote the essay, and I shared it with a few friends who were also Harry Potter fans. And they're like, this is good. You should do something with this. So I was like, oh, all right, sure, whatever you say. And then I saw an ad for a local paper needed a journalist, and they wanted something called clips, which are samples of your writing. I didn't really have any samples of my writing, so I just took this Harry Potter essay that I wrote in the Barnes & Noble, typed it up, and I sent it into the editor, and they hired me.
Oh.
So once I started doing, print journalism, I thought, I like it, but I don't like it because you have to go to city hall meetings and you have to interview people, and it was just a lot of overhead. And so I just started researching online writing opportunities. And at the time, I hadn't even thought about it. I hadn't thought that every single website you go to, everywhere you go online, is somebody's written that. And so once that door opened, I was done. So,
what did you do before this?
I was a financial advisor.
And how did you get into the money field?
Yeah, I don't know. It just happened. I never really had a goal. I never really had direction. It was a field that paid well, and it worked with my personality and my mindset, so it fit, and I enjoyed it. And then, with the 2008 financial crisis was extremely difficult on clients, and my mindset started to change, and I was more driven to educate because I saw how consumers were not really educated about stocks and investing and how much they could lose and how to assess their risk and things like that. And so when the writing and the financial advising merged, it was kind of great because I was finally able to, wow, now I can just teach people. So
very cool. If you have more questions, please feel free to text your name and the question to 813-330-0176. Again, that number is 813-330-0176.
So I guess the next thing I wanted to talk about was paying yourself as a freelance writer. When you work a job, which, you know, maybe some of you have a job at the end of the week or 2 weeks, you get a paycheck, and that pays you for all the time that you've spent working the prior, you know, week or two. It's not like that when you're freelance writing. When you're freelance writing, depending on how you set rates and how you decide to collect from your clients, because it's your business, so basically it's up to you. You can have very large influxes of money coming to you, which in the beginning seems totally awesome because then you can have very large outfluxes as you spend the money that has come in. But that's not actually a good way to have a long career as a freelancer. So, you know, one example is, let's say that you have a book contract. And you're going to write a book, a short book for someone over the course of, let's say, 4 months. Super aggressive, but let's just say 4 months. And, you know, the total bill is, let's say, $20,000. So then you might want to break that down into monthly payments of $5,000 a month over 4 months. And you have, deadlines set during that time. And every time you turn in some of the book, they pay you another, $5,000. You can't take that $5,000 and just run around spending it. Even if you're just spending it on bills, you can't do that. You've got to let it sit in a bank account and pay yourself a paycheck every week. You know, the way that freelance writing works very often is it's a feast versus famine cycle. So you have months where you've got lots of money rolling in, and then you have slow months like the holidays. Oh my gosh, the holidays, it's crickets a lot of times. There's not a lot of work. And so the money that you collected over the summer when you were really busy, you're going to need to stretch that out. In addition to that, you also have to pay your own holiday pay, your own sick pay. You know, when you're at work and you want to take a week off, or you want to take Thanksgiving off, you get paid for that. Well, now you have to pay yourself, or you're going to be working all your holidays. And that's if you can find work, because everyone else is off. So they're really not hiring you to write for them. You also have to manage business expenses like, insurance costs, website management, domain fees, all of that, payments to contractors. It's a lot to manage. So when you get payments coming in, you want to put those in an account, in a business account, and leave them there, and just pay yourself a weekly paycheck. And yeah, that's it.
And sometimes you have to fluctuate that weekly paycheck depending on what comes in and what goes out.
Yeah, it depends. You know, if you're lucky, and you can live on less, you might be able to, like, let's say you can pay yourself $500 a week, and you have $200 a week in business expenses on average. I think that's a little high, but let's just say that's $700 a week. So if you collect $10,000 in a month, $700 a week payout obviously is going to leave you with some extra. So if you're careful enough, you can stay pretty steady with your income, but you're absolutely right. You might have to go up and down. So, you want to make sure that you're as in control of your financial situation as possible. Avoid debt, drive a really old car.
With cats.
Yeah, don't feed your cats sometimes. I mean, they'll be all right. They've got a lot of body fat. No, I'm kidding. Always feed your cats. But yeah, you have to be flexible. So you don't want to have a lot of financial overhead that freaks you out all the time, because, you know, if you're freaked out, it's really hard to sit and be cozy and try to write or focus on getting clients. And you never want to come across to a client like you're desperate, you know, like, I got to eat, man, give me a job. You don't want to do that. So. And then what was the last thing? I think, contracts. Okay. So being a freelance writer is being a business owner. And as a business owner, you want to protect yourself, and you also want to protect your clients. You know, clients aren't going to do business with you if they think you're going to throw them to the wolves. So you want to protect everybody, and that's what a contract does. You can work with an attorney to design a contract. You can look at contracts online and kind of patch your own together. You can also work with unions, like the National Writers Union. You know, they have lawyers available to union members, so that you can get advice on contracts that you're sent from publications, because some people will have their own contracts. And you can get advice on the contracts that you're designing. Basically, in writing, the contracts are mainly going to be about the rights, the usage, and the ownership of the content you create. Generally speaking, you're assigning your rights over to the client. You know, that's going to become their content. But you want to be careful not to over-assign. Like, for instance, you know, if their contract has something to do with derivative articles in it, you want to be really careful. Like, I'll give you an example. I'm a financial writer. So as you can imagine, I write a ton about insurance, life insurance especially. So if I write an article about life insurance for a client and their contract says that I can't write any derivative articles, so I can't write any other articles about that topic, that's going to be a problem for me. So you always want to make sure the contract is limited in scope in a way that suits your business and your future plans. You also want to make sure that the liability or responsibility in the contract is limited. A lot of contracts will call for the writer to be liable for any damages. Let's say that you write about, let's say you write about a new vitamin pill, okay? And all you're doing is writing a factual article. You're like, this is a vitamin A or something. This is what it's made out of. This is the dosage. This is what it's supposed to help you with, and that's it. And then let's say your client comes along, and before they publish it, they add a line to the bottom that says, everyone should take this vitamin. It's great for all of you. You don't want to be liable for having made that statement because you didn't make it. So you always want to make sure your contracts limit the liability to what you've written, and that they also don't make you liable for any complaint that comes in. You know, you can sue someone without being right about what you're suing for. You know, you can accuse someone of something and take them to court. And a lot of these contracts with the liability clauses, they put it on the writer to pay those court costs, which, you know, you want to limit that. You also want to be careful of non-competes. A non-compete clause in a contract basically says that you won't take the clients of your client. So if you're working with a client and they give you access to their client list, they want to make sure that you're not going to steal those clients from them. That's totally fine. That makes a lot of sense. But some non-competes are written so broadly that they make it so that you can't even write in the industry. I recently had one of those with a startup, and I had to turn it down because they wouldn't change those terms, and I wasn't willing to take out an entire industry from, you know, what I'm able to do. So, and then also you want to make sure that your contract limits the project scope. So when you write for someone, you're probably going to have to do edits. They're going to want you to change some things, and, you know, 1 to 2 rounds of edits, that's totally normal, totally acceptable, totally great. 20 rounds of edits over 5 years, it's not good. It's not good. And you might think I'm joking, but last Thanksgiving I was working on a book. It was done at the beginning of the year. I'm still working on it. So wow, this kind of thing happens. So you want to make sure that your contract spells out, listen, this is how many edits you get. This is how much it's going to cost if you go over that amount of edits. this is how long you have, because that's another thing. You'll do a writing project and then 2 years later, they'll come back and go, okay, I have edits for you. Okay, well, I don't remember this project anymore. I have to reread it. I have to go do research. I'm going to have to charge you for these edits. So make sure that your contract spells out exactly what you are willing to do and at what point they have to start paying you more. And I think that's basically it.
Okay, we have a slew of questions.
Oh, exciting.
Yes. So Abby would like to know what some of your daily tasks are that are involved in your job.
Let's see. Well, mostly it's just writing. It's just getting, a little bit further ahead on project A, B, and C, maybe outlining project D, making a few phone calls, maybe if I have interview topics for people, or if I have to contact new clients. New clients sometimes want to meet by phone and talk to you before, and maybe watching YouTube videos or reading for research. There's so much. There's not really a daily routine. It's just whatever is on the plate for that day you do.
Okay, next we have Jacqueline. What is your favorite part about teaching? So you had talked a little bit that you like to teach others.
I hope that it's empowering people to take control of their finances, to understand how to be financially powerful and stable within the society that we have. It's not easy, and so I always think of my grandmother who's gotten burned on some financial purchases. I always think I would like for her to be able to read this and to be like, yeah, I'm strong now. I'm empowered. No one's going to do that to me again. So that's what I like the best.
Okay. Tyler would like to know, how do you determine how you get paid every week or 2 weeks? So how do you determine what salary you take out?
For me, I am weekly. I have myself on weekly. I determine my salary just based on, my own bills and what I need. And I try to balance it between what I know that I have coming in. You try to project a few months out. This is not easy to do because things change. Projects get killed. It happens. So you try to project a few months out, what you've got coming in, and you try to make sure that that's going to cover everything and not be gone. Like, you don't want your bank account balance to be zero. You want to have some profit, some savings that you're holding on to. And then you balance it with your own bills. And so my personal income decisions that I make, because my household lives off of my freelance income and that's it. So it's I have to be very careful. Like if I decided that I wanted to buy a new car, I would seriously have to think about, what if I lose this gig? Or what if this client, what if the editor over here leaves? A lot of times if an editor leaves, an editor that you're used to working with, or even a contact at a insurance company or something that you're used to working with, your gigs dry up. They want to bring in new people for that. So I always have to balance. Can I continue on even if I'm just making bare bones? So I don't know. It's kind of a balancing act. And then because I'm incorporated, I'm what's called an S corp. So I have what's called a pass-through income, which means at the end of the year, all the income that's left in my accounts passes through to me and I have to pay taxes on it. So there's a system of bonuses that go through as well. I don't know. It's hard. I'm not good with words. I'm better with writing. So
I think you explained that very well.
Okay, good.
Cheyenne has a question about what education do you recommend for this profession, such as what major should you take in college? And if you need a master's or a bachelor's, or do you need to go to college?
That's a really great question, Cheyenne. I don't think that there's a single answer for that. I think it really depends on you as an individual, you know, what you're capable of, how far you can push yourself, and what you need, you know, what you need in order to learn more, in order to supplement. Like, you know, I tend to be good when I'm pushed to learn something. On my own, as I said, I'll play video games all day. I'm not going to go learn something. So, you know, kind of a school or assignment environment might be better for someone like me who needs that extra push. But someone else, you know, you don't have to have a degree to be a writer. You have to know how to write. And you really need business skills. Honestly, I can't stress that enough. I had no idea when I came into it how much business skills, how important they would be. So going to college, you know, a master's in fine arts, an MFA for writing, I mean, you can get it. I don't think it would be a bad thing. I think, you know, and it might be fun, but it's a lot of debt that's maybe not necessary. You know, when you're trying to be a writer, people aren't really asking you, do you have an MFA? At least when you're doing online content. Now, it's possible if you're trying to get a job with a company that question may come up and may, you know, may hurt you. But there's a lot of resources you can take online to learn about business, to learn about writing. And in terms of majoring in something in college, you know, you have to also consider that you don't necessarily want to be a generalist writer. A generalist writer would be somebody with no particular specialty who just writes about anything that comes along. So let's say a local stable wants to get more people to board their horses there. So they're going to start a blog. They're going to write a blog all about, I don't know, stable stuff, livery things, horseshoes, stuff like that, okay? So let's say you have writer A, who's just a generalist writer, writes really well, writes amazingly well, and wants this job. And then you have writer B, and writer B writes just as well as writer A, but writer B has been riding horses since she was 5. Who do you think the stable's going to hire? Probably going to hire writer B because she actually knows about the product, which is, you know, stabling your horses. She knows about riding lessons. She knows about the care of horses. She knows what people who are looking for a stable are going to want to hear. So when you think about going to college or you think about what classes to take, it's not necessarily about just improving your writing skills. It's also about creating kind of a niche for yourself where you're an expert in something so that you can give yourself a competitive edge within the writing industry.
Superb. Let's see. So the follow-up to that was, which I think you covered, was, do you need a specific degree to do this type of writing? What was your educational path, which might help to answer some of the education questions?
My educational path was that I did not finish college. I got distracted by life and didn't finish. I was in the financial industry, and I was flirting with going back to school. I thought, you know, everybody seems to want that bachelor's degree. I feel like I'm maybe not going to get the promotions that I want, and so I should think about it. And at the time, a vice president of the insurance company that I worked for, he was kind of a mentor to me, and I talked to him about it. I thought, you know, should I go back to school? What should I major in? And he said, you know, in finance, it's about the licenses. It's about getting the licenses so that you can sell certain stocks and derivatives and bonds and things like that. He said, so I would focus on that, not on going back to school. And that's what I did.
So what type of licenses have you received?
Well, I have the life, health, and variable annuity license to sell those products. I also had the Series 7 license, which allows you to sell stocks and options and bonds and mutual funds. It's you know, the stockbroker's license. And then I had another license which dealt with blue sky laws and selling across state lines and things like that.
Cool. Veronica would like to know, what are some of your responsibilities that you have with this job?
you have responsibilities both with your client and with their reader, and that is difficult to juggle sometimes. Let's say you have a client who wants you to write a book, and they have all these terms that they've come up with that they think are amazing, that they want you to fit into the book. All these little words like that they've made up, little hybrid words like, I don't know, I can't think of one, but let's just say that they have that. And you're, as the writer, you're like, readers aren't going to like all these words. It's too many words that don't make any sense. It's too much. It's trying too hard. It doesn't read easy. Your information's getting lost. So you have to balance that. You have to try to diplomatically tell your client that he or she may be missing their responsibility to their reader by putting all these cutesy terms in. But ultimately, if they want that, it's their book. So you have to cave in some respects. So you have a responsibility both to your client and ultimately to the reader of the content that you'll put out there. That's especially difficult when you're writing in the health field or in the finance field, because sometimes people will want you to write things where you're selling a certain product that maybe you know isn't great. So this is another reason to always make sure that your money is in a good spot, because you want to be able to turn that down. If you don't feel good about it and you think, for me, it's like, would I want my grandmother to do this? Is this a good strategy for her? No. Okay, then I don't want to tell other people to do it. But you have to have the financial security to be able to turn gigs down. If your cats are crying and hungry, it's going to be harder to do that.
Ash would like to know, do you have any other specific tasks that you have to manage since you specialize in financial writing?
Let's see. Other tasks. Well, you have to be familiar with sometimes like the operating systems or the customer relationship management systems that they're using in a brokerage firm, because a lot of times if you're writing business to business content, then you have to know what computer programs are using, even though you're not using them. You have to try to keep up with regulations, because you don't want to put something in that's been changed. You don't want to give your client old information. What else? You want to keep on top of changes that are happening, regulatory changes that might come. Like a big one in the financial industry has been the Department of Labor has what's called a fiduciary rule, where they want financial advisors to have more responsibility in terms of the choices that they're making for their clients. And that one's kind of gone through a lot of shifts, and it's really impacted the way that you write, because you're no longer able to say, a certain investment might be good for everyone who has a low risk tolerance, because that's too broad of a category now. So I hope that answered the question.
If it didn't, she'll ask. So we have about 10 minutes left. If you have any other questions, please feel free to text 813-330-0176 with your name and question. Again, that number is 813-330-0176. So what kind of advice would you give to students who have the world before them and are not sure what path to go? What would you tell them to do?
This is difficult because I never know if this is good advice or not, but I have a sister who's 18, and she's struggling. She's trying to figure out where she fits, what she wants to do, and she's treating every decision that she makes now as if it's basically going to dictate the success of the entire rest of her life. And I would say, in my experience, it's not actually that way. You end up living a lot of different lifetimes in your one life. And you can look at your older family members and maybe kind of see that, maybe you had cousins or aunts or uncles who were single, and then maybe they were married, and then maybe they got divorced, and maybe they had kids. There's all these different kinds of lifetimes that you're living within one life. So the decisions that you make now, they're definitely important, but I don't know that you have to treat them like make or break the rest of your life. When I was 19, 20, 17, 18, no, there's no way. When I was 17, my big dream was just to get a job at McDonald's and move out of my house. Like, that was it. So if you had told me about where my life would go, I would have been completely shocked. So you don't know. So you do your best. You try to make the best decisions that you can with the information that you have, but don't put so much pressure on yourself that you can't even enjoy life or try to make decisions that make you happy.
It's very true. There was another question about how many hours a day do you typically work? And I responded to her 24/7, because I would expect that you don't have a traditional 8 to 5 type job. Yes, that's when the normal world is working, but you make your own schedule. So like me as a virtual teacher, I make my own schedule, and there are some days that it's normal, and there's some days that I'm up till whatever hour doing things.
Yeah, it's weird, when you're doing something creative, because it is kind of always on your mind. You're always looking at newspaper headlines and going, oh, I could make a twist on that. I can make a new article based on this. And you read things and you think, why didn't they ask this? I could do something based on this. Or, you're in the middle of writing a book and it's kind of getting like drudgery. And then suddenly you're in the shower and you're like, oh, I've got it. The perfect paragraph, So in a way, you're always working. But in another way, you're really not. You have a really flexible schedule. So the actual hours spent in front of keyboard are probably shorter than you might think.
Very cool. Trying to think. I had a question and it left.
Oh, I will say though, in terms of hours, I tend to be a late night person. Like, I would love to have a cup of coffee at 6 in the evening and then just stay up until like 3 writing, because nobody bothers you. That's the time everybody else is busy, eating dinner and going to bed. But because you have clients and they want to talk to you, or, as a ghostwriter, a lot of times I have interviews that I have to do, so I have to get on the phone. You do have to try to be available somewhat conventional hours, at least a few days a week. But the really cool thing there is you can say, all right, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm going to work a conventional schedule. But like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, those are mine. I'm going to, sleep all day and stay up all night, whatever works for you.
Those are nice old days when you could sleep all day and stay up all night.
They're great. They really are.
You just don't have the same effect anymore today.
It's harder to bounce back. It's harder to bounce back after staying up all night, and they're like, oh, today's a normal day? Oh, no. Yeah.
It's always the second day that's worse than the first day.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Yolander, for taking your time this morning to speak with our students and a part of our virtual Great American Teach-In. It has truly been a pleasure. I know I've learned a tremendous amount of information. I hope everybody else has. And thank you, everybody, for participating for our full week of presentations. It has been an awesome one, and we look forward to next year. Yolander, do you have any final words?
I don't think so. Thanks to everyone for having me. I hope it helped.
Thank you so much, and have a great day, everybody, and happy Thanksgiving.